I didn't wake up one day planning to ruin my life. No one ever does. If stories like this touch your heart, please subscribe, because every week we share real stories that restore faith in humanity. It happened quietly, so quietly that at first I didn't even realize I had crossed the line. There was no dramatic music, no warning sign, no moment where the sky cracked open and told me to stop. Just a decision, a small one. The kind people make every day, convincing themselves it won't matter tomorrow, but tomorrow always comes. Back then, I was just trying to survive. Bills were stacking up, expectations were heavy, everyone around me seemed to be moving forward while I was stuck in place, pretending I was fine when I wasn't. I smiled in public, laughed at jokes, told people I was good, but inside I felt like I was slowly drowning. The pressure didn't make me evil, but it made me careless. I told myself I deserved a shortcut, just this once. I said I'd fix it later, that no one would get hurt, that I would make things right once I was back on my feet. That lie sounded comforting in the moment. It wrapped around me like a blanket. I didn't realize it was tightening like a noose. When the consequences finally arrived, they didn't knock politely. They crashed through the door and took everything with them. I remember the exact moment the truth came out. The room felt smaller, the air felt heavier. Conversations stopped, eyes shifted, faces changed. People who once trusted me didn't even recognize me anymore. And the silence, that was the worst part. Not anger, not shouting, silence. Friends stopped calling. Messages went unanswered. Invitations disappeared. Family gatherings became uncomfortable, filled with forced smiles and unspoken disappointment. No one needed to say it out loud. I could see it in their eyes. How could you? I asked myself the same question every night. At first, I tried to explain. I told my side of the story. I talked about stress, about circumstances, about intentions, but excuses sound hollow when trust is broken. The more I talked, the worse it felt. So eventually I stopped. That's when the real fall began. Rock bottom isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's just waking up every day with a heavy chest, replaying the same mistake on a loop. It's sitting alone in a room full of people. It's realizing that your name now carries a story you never wanted attached to it. I lost opportunities I had worked years for. Doors closed before I could even knock. People judged me before I spoke. I became that person, defined not by who I was trying to become, but by the worst thing I had ever done. And slowly I started believing I deserved it. I isolated myself, not because people pushed me away, but because shame told me I didn't belong. I avoided mirrors, I avoided conversations, I avoided hope. It felt safer to expect nothing than to be disappointed again. There were nights I lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering how one decision had rewritten my entire life. I thought about the younger version of myself, the one with dreams, plans, confidence, and I hated what I had become. I told myself redemption was for other people, people who made smaller mistakes. People who still had a clean reputation, people who hadn't disappointed everyone they loved. I thought my story was already over. Then one day something unexpected happened. It wasn't a miracle, it wasn't a big speech, it was just a sentence. I was sitting across from someone who knew my past, someone who had every reason to judge me. I expected the same look I'd seen 100 times before. Skepticism, disappointment, distance. Instead, they said, "You can't change what you did. But you can decide whether it destroys you or teaches you." That sentence stayed with me. I went home that night and thought about it for hours. For the first time since everything fell apart, I didn't try to defend myself. I didn't blame circumstances. I didn't blame people. I looked straight at my regret and stopped running from it. I admitted something I had been avoiding. I was responsible. That didn't mean I was worthless. It didn't mean I was beyond saving. But it meant I had work to do. The next morning I woke up with no applause, no forgiveness letters, no guarantees, just a decision, this time a better one. I started with accountability. I apologized without expecting anything back. Not forgiveness, not understanding, not reconciliation. I owned my mistake, even when it was uncomfortable, even when it hurt, even when the response was silence. Some people forgave me, some didn't. And I learned to accept both. I stopped asking when things would get better and focused on whether I was getting better. I worked quietly. I showed up when no one was watching. I stayed consistent even when it felt pointless. There were days I wanted to quit, days when it felt like my past was louder than my progress, days when I wondered if change even mattered if no one noticed. But something inside me had shifted. I wasn't changing to be accepted anymore. I was changing because it was right. Over time, small things began to happen. A conversation that didn't end awkwardly. A second chance I didn't expect. A moment where someone trusted me with something small, and I didn't take it lightly. Redemption doesn't arrive with fireworks. It arrives slowly, almost invisibly. Trust returns in inches, not miles. Respect rebuilds quietly, not loudly. And one day I realized something surprising. I wasn't ashamed of my past anymore, not because it stopped mattering, but because it stopped controlling me. My regret had become my teacher. It showed me the cost of shortcuts, the value of integrity, the importance of owning your mistakes instead of hiding from them. I learned that character isn't proven when things are easy. It's revealed when everything falls apart and you choose to rebuild anyway. People started seeing the change, not in my words, but in my actions. Some who once walked away came back, others stayed gone. And I made peace with that. Because redemption isn't about reclaiming your old life, it's about building a better one. Today, when I look back at my biggest regret, I don't romanticize it. I don't excuse it. I don't wish it never happened, because without it, I wouldn't be who I am now. Stronger, more honest, more aware. I learned that your worst mistake does not define your entire story unless you let it. You can carry regret as a burden, or you can carry it as a lesson. The choice is always yours. So if you're listening to this and you feel trapped by your past, if you think it's too late, if you believe people will never see you differently, before this story ends, I just want to say thank you to everyone who subscribed. This channel exists because of you. Redemption doesn't start when others forgive you. It starts when you refuse to give up on yourself. Your biggest regret might just become your greatest lesson, if you let it.